Yo, what's going on, believers? Happy Monday. It is Monday morning here. Just turned 8 a.m. Central Time, and I have a weekly outlook for you. So, give me some time to read over the risk disclaimer. I'm not a financial advisor. I only advise you to get some belief in yourself. Looking at the economic calendar. So, a couple of things to keep in mind. The month is ending. So the first day of the new month will be Wednesday. So I always like to keep that in mind when a new month is about to open. It's a new month of delivery, basically, for me to begin anticipating. It's also, with it being the first week of a new month, we'll have a NFP on Friday. So, as you can see here, non-farm payroll. And there's also an interest rate decision this week on Wednesday, which happens to be the first of the month. So could be setting up to be a very telling week for the month, even though it's only going to include those first 3 days of the month. Just with all of the news on the calendar and things like that, it could definitely be a really explosive week. Although last week was pretty explosive, but let's go ahead and get to the charts and we'll talk more about charts. So I want to start off on the daily chart, and I just want to scroll through. I'm not going to be doing any reviews, but as far as if you watched the last Outlook video, going through the daily real quick should give you some sort of idea of how it played out, right? If you watched the video and then you just come and you're watching this one now, without there being a review, just seeing the daily chart and how it played off of the levels that were outlined is going to be enough of a, opportunity for you to see that the outlook was on point, right? So this is dollar here, daily chart. There are some new annotations, of course, but the biggest thing is, as far as what was called for last week, it hit every objective. NASDAQ, as you can see, was up in this area. Right, look at the daily using those levels that I identified. Same thing with S&P. What I love about this one specifically is that I like when Tuesday creates the high or low of the week, and it actually perfectly tapped that 4290.5. And I did mention that exact level in the last video. Perfectly tapped that, and that was the high of the week. Never looked back. And then Dow Jones, right, same thing. There was that fair value gap, right? It left after Monday, trades up into it, and then rejects lower for the rest of the week. So beautiful delivery across the board. Now, since I did mention monthly, let's just look at the monthlies real quick as well, just to review where we are as far as monthly perspective. So dollar within this, right, fair value gap up here, it reached that 25%, failed to reach the 50%. So now it's basically resting between the low end of it and the 25%. So definitely not showing me any signs of turning around. And it's also leaving a potential fair value gap here, which is most likely going to be left open. There's only a couple of days, or a day basically left in the month. So this will most likely be left open as a fair value gap, which could be an area of interest for next month if dollar opens up bearish, drops down below, right, October's low, basically repricing to this fair value gap that's about to be created, then that could be the catalyst for that move higher to that 50% and above of this fair value gap here. All right, so that is monthly perspective for dollar. NASDAQ, so as we can see, most likely going to close as a bearish month. It was the one that took the longest to get to that September low, but it's now to and below that low inside of this monthly fair value gap. But my interest, to be honest, is the low end of it. But to measure it out, right, and to show, has price interacted with the midpoint of it yet, right? So yes, so it's tapped off the middle of it, and that's where this rejection, right, creating basically that distance between the low and potentially the close, right? So that bounce off that 50% is basically being a catalyst for this retracement, creating this tail on the bottom of the monthly candle. And so going into next month, right, with the close below September's low, I would be anticipating a revisit of October's low. So no matter where it closes off of this low, as long as it closes below September's low, I will be looking for October's low to be traded to next month. ES looking very heavy here on the monthly, looking at this right halfway point of this tail here. So that 40-15 level is kind of somewhere I got my eyes on. ES on the monthly. Dow Jones looking at so these brown lines are actually that only other fair value gap, right? That was on the monthly for Dow Jones. So because this is the only one for so long, I took the liberty of actually like just identifying it and extending it to the right to kind of see how price has been reacting since. And as you can see, price has been sensitive to this area quite a bit, although it was all the way from March 2021. But as far as areas I'm looking for, this low from March of 2023 was basically the low of 2023. So I'm looking at Dow Jones making a new low of the year. It's been in the range the whole time anyways, right? Set the high, bumped the high from last year. No, that wasn't the high from last year. So bumped the December high from last year, and then it's been moving lower since then. So that's the monthly perspectives, right? So now we'll do weekly and daily and then get up out of here. So as far as the weekly is concerned for dollar, I'm looking for last week's high to be traded to. NASDAQ looking for last week's low to be traded to. ES looking for last week's low to be traded to. And Dow Jones looking for last week's low to be traded to. And then daily chart view real quick. As far as the daily is concerned, is where we started at, right? So I have this area here, opening price of this down closed candle, identified as a bullish order block. So could see some sort of a bounce from here if dollar continues lower. Could see some sort of bounce here and actually it print the low of the week on a Monday, because what it's doing here is there's this inefficiency here, right? This imbalance, this fair value gap, this BISI, whichever way, right? I settled on calling it because there's so many different ways, to be honest, that is identified. And I just want to make sure that everybody listening knows what I'm referring to. But just to make it simple, I will like select just one way of identifying it moving forward, and then we'll just stick with that, right? But these two lines here, the high of it and the low of it. So so Friday dropped down into it, rejected, right, close out of it. So that's why the daily drawn liquidity is Friday's high, and then the weekly is last week's high for dollar. With it starting the week moving lower again, I have discount areas right down here where I would anticipate some sort of a bounce. So this is definitely tolerable. This is actually something that I'm preferring to see because it sets up for the power of three, where it got the opening price, the accumulation, right, and then some sort of a manipulation, and then see that distribution coming back higher, attacking the real draws on liquidity, while just engineering liquidity here and basically allowing for anyone that wants to be short to see some profit, but there's also leaving plenty of buy stops resting above, right? So that's a dollar perspective, well, daily perspective on the dollar. NASDAQ, so actually looking for Friday's high to be taken out, even though right last week's low is the weekly drawn liquidity. As far as the daily is going to be Friday's high. So that's why I'm actually not too excited about doing anything today. Some Mondays are really good opportunities to be getting involved. They tend to be the Mondays where the high or the low of the week is created, and I'm still trying to get like more familiar with the conditions, right, that set that up. Because if I can get in a trade on Monday and not have to worry about, you know, it reversing potentially on me until maybe Thursday or something like that, it gives me basically 3 free days of profit, right, from my entry. So definitely want to get some more understanding about that. But for the time being, just the process I have in development currently, this has been working just fine, right? So just what this is telling me is that even though this could be a situation where, as aggressive as it was last week, it did drop down into some high time frame areas, right? Like that midpoint, right, that I was showing of that monthly tail, right, on NASDAQ. So dropping down into that and rejecting higher, with this being a new week, all of the news and things like that coming out, opened up with a gap higher. This honestly could leave this gap open, and this could be, right, Monday low of the week. It could be, and this is why it's always about planning probabilities. I'm keeping an open mind to anything, because it only really becomes I have to make a decision, right, type of analysis when I'm actually looking to get into a trade. When I'm not looking to get into a trade, I'm very open-minded about the possibilities within the marketplace, because anything is possible, right? And that's what my job as an analyst is to be able to like spot the probabilities, right? To be able to spot the difference between high probability and low probability and where to put my risk. And so until I'm actually thinking about applying some risk, there's really nothing, you know, of like urgency. There's no sense of urgency about like, oh, I need to make a decision based on this information. If the information isn't, you know, clearly within the rules that I've established, or it doesn't clearly indicate one thing over the other, then what I'm supposed to do is simply nothing. Right? So that's what I'm opting to do today. Although it's a possibility that it could, right? Someone a little bit more aggressive could take an opportunity, and basically what they would have to do is take this as a swing trade, where even they'd have to use like the stop loss for their trade as the closing price from Friday, getting anywhere around where it's at now. And of course, if this is going to be like a Monday low of the week, maybe they're targeting like this low here, right? Because there's a fair value gap here, right, between this low and this high. So maybe they're targeting that, maybe a fill of this fair value gap, and then potentially continuation lower, more consolidation. Who knows, right? The job isn't to anticipate every, right, fluctuation in price, but to be able to see when an opportunity that's high probability presents itself, and then take the risk on that chance, right? But so it's a little bit long-winded, but y'all know I care, so that's why I share. But so that's NASDAQ, right? Daily draw, Friday's high. Weekly draw, last week's low. ES, daily draw, Friday's low. And then, of course, weekly draw, last week's low, which also happens to be Friday's low. That's why you see this a little bit thicker dots there. And then Dow Jones. We're going to talk about this one a little bit more exclusively, and then we'll be out of here. But so Dow Jones, daily draw, Friday's low. Of course, right, weekly draw, last week's low, which happens to be Friday's low. That's why these dots are thicker. I want to go to the weekly on Dow Jones, because I did also mention this traded area that price is within as a pending weekly bearish breaker, and how it may have a difficult time digging through it, right? And so it really didn't after a while. Last week, it really just started to dig through it pretty easily, was able to close below the halfway point. And so I'm definitely seeing a run on this sell side liquidity at the very least. Even if it doesn't confirm this as a bearish breaker, that's why it's still pending, right? I would need to see a close below here, and ideally a close below there, leaving the fair value gap, right? So leaving me an area for price to reprice back into, for me to get a re-entry for another leg lower. But that's right, needs to set up first. That's not something that's going to just be blindly, you know, entered. The conditions have to line up with that narrative before that is a play that I would take. But as far as this setting up so far, I do like, if it's going to be a heavy week, right? And this is where the dilemma is, where is the indices aren't moving in sync, right? Because NASDAQ daily draw liquidity is Friday's high, but ES and Dow Jones are both Friday's low. So with them having, you know, differing draws on liquidity start off for this first day of the week, it also makes sense for me to just kind of see what plays out, right? Maybe there's a little bit of a back and forth large range where NASDAQ does go and knock out the high, but then gets back towards a low, and it's right back on track with the other two, and they're all looking, you know, bearish again, like they're ready to go run some more sell stops. So if that is the case, right, and this doesn't, you know, reject here too much, right, this could be, just, you know, saying it now, right, before it happens, this could be resistance already, this midpoint of this area here. But I would allow for as much as like that 75% of it. So taking half of the top half, right, that area as well would be tolerable, which kind of lines up with this old low here. So it's old swing low, kind of lines up with the 75% of this range, which both could, you know, tag team and act as resistance, along with, right, other areas of structure that happened within last week, other areas of liquidity that could be paired with some short orders. So that is pretty much going to be it for this weekly outlook. I believe this one, for the most part, right, with all of the things going on this week, this will actually probably be the most difficult one for all of October, right? I didn't do one that first week because it didn't really make any sense. I needed more information. Once I got the information I needed, the next two were bangers, and this one pretty much seems like it's a no-brainer as far as like the momentum is still in the same direction. The only thing, right, is that there's news on the horizon and there's a new month opening up. So outside of those two things, the technicals are all still pointing to the same thing, which is bearish indices, bullish dollar. Will it happen this week, right? There's retracements and things like that within the market, so this could be a retracement week or a consolidation week. We shall see, right? But as far as like what I'm anticipating and what I'm going to be looking for to happen for me to get involved, I've outlined that to you here. So shout out to the believers, shout out to the dreamers, shout out to the homies that inspire me to be better each and every day. Love you, appreciate you more than you know. I will catch y'all on the next one. Y'all stay safe. Peace.